Hey people, you've reached Sweden On at Alberta Youth Radio in partnership with Operation Child Protective Services. We're going to listen to this song and then we're going to get to business. So welcome to our first recording. Things are a little bit rough lately because of some technology difficulties. but we needed to get this started. I decided to start this because I am also a former foster child, have been in the system, and also have a child in the system right now. I know that many of the kids don't get a voice. Often they're not even allowed to tell their stories until they left the system. And I'd like to, let you know a little bit about me, and I'd like to know a bit about you. We are hoping that people can send in their own podcasts, their own music, poetry, writings, art, which we can put online. Anything that will get your voice out. If you want to be anonymous, you don't want your name known, that is definitely something we can do. We can change your voice. And of course, due to some legalities, we won't be able to post your name in some cases. But we don't want your voices to be muted. I know just recently I'd made a phone call to the child advocate, concerned about my own child, wanting to make sure that he had his back, that they had his back. Well, they let me know that I couldn't know if he had an advocate, and I couldn't even know if he did get an advocate what the name of that advocate was. So this is deeply concerning for me. You may have heard in the news that 685 children who died under the child welfare umbrella, whose deaths were hidden for 10 years. And then when the deaths were exposed by the media, soon we found out that the funding for that investigation was to be taken away. This was very, very concerning. I mean, we've got almost 700 children dead, and they're going to take away the funding for the investigation. What does that make you think when you hear that? I know it was shocking to me. It was shocking to me actually telling so many people about this and knowing that they didn't, by the expression on their face or what they said, they didn't know a damn thing about it. They didn't know fuck all. And then we see things in the media, like when that line was shot. I mean, it was everywhere. Everywhere you went, you learned about this dead lion. But people were like, oh, 685 dead children? Really? We didn't know about that. And then I see some of the faces. The funding was taken away for the investigation. So ask yourself, why would the PC government want that hidden up? I mean, it was first disclosed that it was about 50 children. And then it gets up to almost 700. And we're still not entirely sure if that's an accurate number. There's children who go missing. There's, people who don't really document properly. I mean, just recently in the States, they had somebody collecting money for 2 dead children for years. They were gone. They were dead. And yet they kept collecting this money like they were still alive. They managed to give every excuse in the book on why nobody ever saw these kids. So I guess the thing I really want to focus on is due process. And what I mean by that is, talking about just this situation where I had called the advocate to make sure that my child was looked out for, because he does have some special needs and some medical issues that really need to be looked out for. I mean, he didn't have glasses for 8 months. Think of that. You think a caseworker can't get a kid a pair of glasses when 80% of what they learn in the classroom is visual. And so I was allowed to see and talk to my child at that time. I haven't seen my child except for 1 hour in almost 40 days. And I've known him his entire life, and I've gone to all his medical appointments. I know all his complex needs. I know when he's sick when nobody else does. So you got the community, you got teachers or aunts or uncles or other concerned people, maybe even other kids who are phoning the advocate's office and saying, I'm worried about Sally. I notice she has bruises on her. I've called the caseworker. I've called the team leader. I've done everything, and I don't see any difference. I don't see any changes. I don't see that she's even moved from that foster home. I'm not saying that Children's Services never does anything. There are some good people that are working for them. But their focus is not on keeping families together. And I know that. I was brought up as a child in the foster care system, and my child is almost 13 years old, and I've seen how they've treated him. So I decided to start this radio to give kids a voice. And I'm hoping that you guys will, send me your stuff. Send me your feelings. Send me your gifts to the world so that people can really, really know what it's like to be in the custody of the government. For social workers and other people to hear what it's like to be ripped from your family. I mean, we read it in the newspaper, and occasionally we might hear somebody talk about it on the news. But hearing your voice and your feelings and your emotions and what you're going through is going to have a big impact on people. So please, if you know a child in foster care and you know that they're not doing very good and you know that they've probably tried to have their voice heard, you let them know that they can call here, email us, Facebook us. Pretty soon we're going to have a whole bunch of other media connections that you can connect with us. This is just a startup, but we want your voice heard all over. We want it to become so loud that nobody can ever ignore it again. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. My mom committed suicide when I was 7. She was a heroin addict and an alcoholic. And she was pretty lost. I mean, my grandmother wasn't the greatest parent, that's for sure. And so she had married my dad in the United States and had me. But I never really knew her that well. She wasn't around a lot. And my memory of when I was really young is a little bit foggy. I know that I had been put in a group home for a little while when I was young, and then I was brought back to my grandmother. And then my mom tried again. I think she didn't really want to live. She'd kind of given up hope. Heroin is one of the most difficult drugs to ever get off of. And they barely had any support to get off of drugs back then. And she was pretty lost. And so she wanted to make sure that I was safe. So I think that's why she really tried to get me into a foster home. And she accomplished that. I was in a foster home. But I still have clear memories of that. Even though I was I think maybe about 5 years old. I remember just feeling like I didn't belong. And I remember going to bed hungry when they were mad at me. And I remember feeling like the kids just didn't want me there. Like I was invading their territory. And the parents, they didn't really have the insights or the skills. I think maybe sometimes when people decide to take a foster child in, they're not really fully educated. They don't know the kind of trauma or the kind of things that child has gone through, and the kind of patience, vigilance, understanding, compassion, and empathy that they're going to need to have for this child. And this particular foster home did not have that. So they sent me back, and then they ended up putting me with my grandmother. I know my grandmother's life was very difficult. She came from a large Russian family, and she came to Canada at quite a young age. And she was the older child, so she was kind of looked on as a second mother. You know, the one that would go to work and would help with all the chores, that would give up school, give up her dreams to help keep the family together, I guess. And she'd ended up marrying twice, and judging from what I've heard from past relatives that I've spoken to that are no longer alive, that life with her was very, very difficult. She was with them as she was with me, which I didn't find out till later. I always thought it was just me. But yeah, she was very physically and verbally abusive. My mom finally decided to leave this world when I was 7 years old. I remember her standing, in front of the porch, saying goodbye. She was going to go and take some clothes back to the bay. And she was actually going to take me that day. But then she decided not to. And I never saw her again. There's different rumors on what happened, but eventually, through my own investigation, talking to police officers that were at my school, she just went and decided that she was going to drown herself. Her clothes were found on the side of the river, and when they did an autopsy, she had no drugs in her system. I don't really understand that because I know how hard it is to get off of heroin. So I don't know. Maybe they didn't give me all the details. But they did find her a few months later close to Princess Island, which is kind of like a park here in Calgary. And I was told for a while that my mom had just died in the hospital. Nobody wanted to tell me the truth. But eventually, for some reason, one of my aunts came forward and told me that. And my grandma often, when she was angry at me, would tell me that I was good for nothing, I'd never amount to anything, and that it was my fault that my mom killed herself. She was very, very cruel. And life with her was very difficult. I always felt empty inside. I always felt like I wasn't wanted. And she let me know that. And so when I was about 12 years old, my grandma had gotten really angry at me. And she'd stuck a knife in my back. And I'd run outside and I'd told the neighbor. And the neighbor called Child Protective Services. And they came and got me. And I remember it was kind of a relief, believe it or not. If I knew what was in store for me, maybe not. But I thought, finally, I'm going to be protected. I was taken to a group home. It was called Shelter. And it was, it didn't look like a home. It looked like an institution. All the bedrooms lined up on the top and the bottom. Well, I should say on each side. They had different sections. And I think my very first day, one of the girls thought that they'd welcome me and beat me up. And I don't know, I didn't understand. She didn't even know me and she wanted to beat me up. And the staff were not very warm or very affectionate. I had to get in this huge bathtub that was like way up high and crawl into the tub, and they would put lice shampoo on my head. I had to have that a few times because I ended up running away a few times. So your hair kind of gets all dry and gross. And then I became a part of shelter. And I ran away because I didn't feel like they cared about me. And they didn't really even go look for me. I lived on the streets for a while, and then I ran away and lived on the army barracks for a while, where the RCMP eventually ended up bringing me back to shelter. And then there was these people, they were Mormons. I mean, not that any religion matters, but I think they really wanted me to attend their church. I wanted them to like me so badly. I told them I'd help them with their kids. And I thought that they seemed really nice. And I thought that maybe I'd finally have a family. But I learned pretty soon that that's not what was going to happen. I seemed to get bullied everywhere I went. So, again, I was welcomed into the group home by some of the girls giving me chocolate, so I thought. Yeah, so I thought. Turned out to be X-Lax. Yeah. So, let's just say that I was running to the bathroom quite a bit at school that day. So, I remember I had kind of gotten friends with one of the girls there, and they wanted me to go out with her so that she could kind of hang around with her new boyfriend, and so we took off. We didn't let the staff know, the group home couple, and I didn't expect to stay so long. We ended up actually staying the night, and then sneaking really, really early into the group home and crawling into bed, thinking that maybe he wouldn't have noticed. But he did. He pretty well ripped the blankets off in the mornings and called us sluts. And he was quite abusive, actually. He didn't hit me, but I remember them sitting me down and saying, you know, we took you, and you didn't really help us with our kids. Their kids were, I don't even like using the terminology spoiled, but they were, pretty disrespectful kids. They weren't the kind of kids that you were very attracted to. Let's just put it that way. And you know, I did play with them, but I guess I was just trying to be accepted by the other girls that were in the group home. And of course, the one that was going to their church was pretty well their pet. They thought she was so wonderful. Meanwhile, she's having sex in the back of the school and getting drunk and doing drugs and then going to church and, you know, pretending that she's doing, that she was so good. So they sat me down and they said, Dawn, you either wash every single window in this group home or you can leave. You can pack your clothes and you can go. And I looked at them and I said, you know, if that's all it takes for me to go, if that's how easily you're going to get rid of me, then yeah, I'm not doing the windows. So they packed my stuff up and I went back to shelter. It was really hard because you felt disposable. You felt like you didn't matter. And I want to find so many kids that are going through things like this. Because caseworkers and social workers, team leaders, offices are not doing their jobs. I figure if we find enough kids that come forward with the same caseworker, social worker, team leader in office, that people are going to have to listen. If you're not from Alberta, then, give us a call anyway. I'm going to continue to tell my story, throughout the different podcasting, and I'm hoping that this will evolve to be something incredible. But you're going to have to bear with me in the meantime because I'm incredibly new to this. But I'm excited. It's going to be something that's going to take off. And it's going to be different than anything else that you hear. And we're going to hear real stories. And we're hoping to reach hearts of people that can make change and that can remove unethical civil servants that are not doing their job in protecting children. We know that, social workers that are looking after, children's services case files get paid significantly more than an average social worker. We want all social workers to be looked on equally. They all do, different jobs. And some of their jobs can be quite difficult. We want those in those kind of positions, especially the ones that are looking after children, to be vigilant and to be their voice and to have their back, not have their own back, which is what they do. And people are shocked. Like I said, you don't get 685 dead children hidden from the public easily. There takes a team of people that are all working together to keep that quiet. And we don't want those people around anymore. We don't want people who are going to be quiet when kids are being hurt, when they should be protecting them and not their own ass. So, come forward, people. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear what you say because it matters, because you are important, and because you do belong. Thank you for listening. And we hope you're going to do some investigating on Operation Expose CPS. We have multiple pages all over the place internationally. And now we have a place for the kids to speak. You. So come forward. Have an awesome day. This is Sweet Anon signing out. Bye-bye. Sorry about that. Anyway, we'll just end. Alright, leave your comments, alright? I'll leave you some more information and links at the bottom of this podcast.